Good morning. I'm Julio Science along with Mauricio Riveros. Today we'll meet Matt Wagstaff, who started his own printing company 10 years ago to spread positive messages in the community.
We hope you will be inspired.
Celebrating leaders in Rochester's unique and vibrant business community. We'll meet entrepreneurs whose passion and perseverance have helped push through life's challenges. Join us as we share their stories and journeys to success. It's time to be inspired.
Matt, thank you very much to be inspired, a show that we developed to interview entrepreneurs, people who are doing great things here in Rochester. And today we have the honor to have you. So let's start learning who is Matt.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. If I was to describe who Matt is, it's a pretty complex answer there. But Matt is a highly ambitious, super grateful, highly motivated soul who's having a human experience right now. Born and raised in Buffalo, New York. I've been in Rochester for 13 years. I am a full-time career professional at Excelis Blue Cross Blue Shield, where I'm in their business strategy office. But for the last almost 10 years, I've been a entrepreneur with a home-based business called Positive Prints. I have a lot of different passions in the entrepreneur space, but I also enjoy supporting the youth who are coming up and are looking for options in their life.
That is wonderful, Matt. And I just love to see, that capacity to be able to work in a very large organization and then establish your own company and now develop this amazing service. So tell us a little bit about that step, create your own business, and what was that step of faith that you took?
Yeah, and so it's a pretty interesting story, and it has a long backstory. So if we have a little bit of time here, I can give you a little bit of backstory. So as well as who I am, I'm also a husband and a father, most importantly. And so excuse me, Tamika, if you're listening right now, my apologies. That's my wife. And so back when I would say in 6th or 7th grade, a group of my friends, we had a sort of like a rap group. And part of the rap group is that we were able to print clothes and we were selling them to our friends and family that had clothes. Fast forward to high school, I ended up printing the t-shirts for our senior class because me and a buddy of mine wanted to make a couple extra dollars. Plus, we didn't like the way that the senior class t-shirts looked, so we wanted to print our own t-shirts. We ended up selling more than the school did at that time, so that was pretty interesting. And then fast forward into adulthood, just thinking about my past, my passions, as well as what options I should be able to start creating for my family and for myself in the future. I started thinking about what business ventures, what makes sense for us to be able to start creating that enterprise or that asset that can help support our family, just in case something was to happen. And so I found a screen printing starter kit online. It was for about $150. I ran upstairs from my office and my wife was in the bed. And I said, "Hey, honey, do we have $150 that I can use to just kind of learn this thing, this screen printing thing? You remember I told you when I was in high school, I made these t-shirts and I think it could be something that we could turn into something and it may end up being a business for us." And so it was just a matter of just trying to think of what options were out there that I was passionate about, that other folks had a need for. It was a time almost 10 years ago where a lot of t-shirts were just coming out with just random sayings. And but also what made me want to jump into this space was that I was seeing it was a kind of a negative time in life too. There were some things going on this outside that I was experiencing. So I decided to create something that was going to be almost like a ministry through a passion of mine. And that's where Positive Prints was created. And so the original thought was to create t-shirts that had positive sayings on them and serve as sort of a ministry that way. So as you are walking down the street, you can express yourself in a positive way. And then someone who sees your shirts could also experience the positivity coming from your shirts. So that was the genesis behind it. My wife blessed me with the okay to start the business. And so I started self-studying and learning just by doing. And then fast forward maybe about 8 or 9 months later, I decided to get an LLC so that we can, formally separate our individual life from the business. And so Positive Prince was born on July 21st of 2011.
Fantastic, man. It's a great story. You have a great wife, and it's great that she supports you, and that's so important in all these kinds of things. And I wanted to ask you, because it's a very it's become a very popular thing for people to think about, well, I have this job I like and I'm good at it, and you do very well there. But hey, I have time and I have this passion, and I'm going to start a side gig. It's become like the thing, a side gig. And so how do you and you said you're a husband and a father. How do you define like the pockets of time during the week that you'll dedicate to the business? How do you manage that?
Yeah, and it's not an easy task for sure. And it's actually something I've been learning and continue to grow in. And so a big part of sort of like my personal philosophy is balance. And there's really no pure definition of balance. And so I try to organize my day and my week so that all the major buckets of importance to my life are accounted for. And so I literally sit down and say, okay, what do I need to do with my son today so I can make sure I spend son time? Do I need to call my daughter who lives in Buffalo? Do I need to spend some time sending out invoices for the business? I dedicate pure time for my job, so my career gets my full undivided attention. So that block of 8 hours, 9 hours is already accounted for. Spending the time to work out, meditate, all those things that are important to me. And so I literally have to write it down. But also a huge part of that is making sure that whatever it is that you're trying to balance, that you are actually passionate about it and that it's something that's important to you. So knowing my why is what keeps me motivated and keeps me going, and makes sure or ensures that I actually have it on my schedule. And so I check back in constantly to make sure that, hey, if I haven't spent the time with my wife this week, if I hadn't spent the time with my son or called my daughter, or haven't spent the time on the business, I have to always recalibrate and check in and say, okay, you said it was important to you. All right, make sure it's on the schedule. And so I literally have to put it on my calendar on my phone. I put it on our refrigerator calendar if I need to, create my list every morning when I wake up. So it's a lot of different steps, but it's important. So you got to do what you have to do.
And that's so important, Matt. I love the element of balance and be able to put priorities in place. Now, you as an entrepreneur made the decision to start the business, have the business, the support of the wife, of course. It's important. But now you are developing people, you are developing talent, you probably work with some co-workers. What's the philosophy of your organization working with others and developing teams?
That's a really good question, because I don't have a team per se for Positive Prince. I do have a team on one of the programs that have come out of Positive Prince, which is a new program, which is the Young Entrepreneur Marketplace. And so, my philosophy with teams in general, so whether it's my teams outside of my career or in my career where I manage a team of 5 today, is really the African saying of Ubuntu is I am because we are. And so I am really nothing without the team that's behind me or the people who support me. And so my success or my failure is predicated on how well I'm able to inspire and develop and celebrate my team members. And so I'm nothing without the collective who helped me to be who I am. So that's an underlying fundamental priority for me, is to make sure that if I have a team, that 1, I'm appreciative of them, very thankful for them. 2, I'm trying to figure out best ways for me to add value to them and not the other way around. And 3, we're going to make sure we celebrate the wins as much as possible. So those are my main philosophies.
I have a creativity question for you, Matt. I love the concept of these t-shirts to have these positive messages on them. Can you tell us of one of your favorites?
Oh, my absolute favorite, without a doubt, is Fatherhood Matters. That's my absolute favorite. Fatherhood Matters, followed closely by Iron Sharpens Iron. And so, I have the t-shirt says Fatherhood Matters. I wear it out proudly. I don't really care who sees it. I want everybody to see it. I want ladies wearing Fatherhood Matters shirts. I want kids wearing Fatherhood Matters shirts. I want everybody wearing the Fatherhood Matters shirts because I do believe that, fatherhood is super important. Whether you're the formal dad or official dad, or you are the father figure, I strongly believe that having that figure as part of the development of any child is extremely important and an integral part of the family dynamic. And so Fatherhood Matters would absolutely be my number one t-shirt design.
You mentioned your second favorite?
Iron sharpens iron. So there's a proverb that says, as iron sharpens iron, so does a friend sharpen another friend. So it's essentially making sure your circle is helping you become better. And so making sure you're surrounding yourself. Not only are they adding to you, but most importantly, you are able to add to them. And so iron sharpens iron is a definite, close runner-up to Fatherhood Matters.
Well, thank you, Matt. We'll be back with more after these messages. Now, I think, we're entrepreneurs. I have own businesses, Mauricio. We all interview entrepreneurs here all the time. And we always ask, at what point did you get that spark that said, I'm going to start a business? How do you teach entrepreneurship to young people? You talked about the work that you do with young people. How do you teach entrepreneurship to young people?
Yeah, I struggle with this all the time. So I'm a very, what do you call it? I can be considered a loner to a large extent. And so I'll walk out in Charlotte Beach by myself for hours and just have personal thought time with myself. So as I'm having this kind of introspective discussion with myself, I'm always thinking about, like, how can I make this easy for a kid? Like, if I'm going to talk to my son who's 8 and share with him why he needs to be an entrepreneur, or why it may make sense, like, what can I share with him? And it's so interesting, over the last couple of months, as I was thinking about this even more, I started thinking about my values and what really drove me to entrepreneurship. And the underlying root of it all for me is that I value freedom. And I think that anyone who is interested in business has an element in their DNA that values freedom and the ability to own their own destiny. And so I'm also a volunteer with Junior Achievement, one of my most favorite nonprofits on the planet, by the way. And so when I'm in the classroom and I'm talking to students there, the first question I ask them, and they can either be upset about this or not, but this is the question I ask is, who wants to be a slave? And, who enjoys slavery? And they ask the question, they answer it, they have perplexed faces, and they look at them and say, well, entrepreneurship allows you the opportunity to have the freedom to control your own destiny, if that's something you value. If it's something you don't value, and you prefer to have someone else dictate or have that level of authority over your life, then that's fine as well. Like, don't let me be the person that tells you what you should value. However, if you are interested in this space can allow for that level of freedom if you put in the work and the energy and the time. And so I'm also big on intrinsic motivation. I can't make other people motivated. I have to just essentially set the framework and set up the situation so that if it resonates with them, then great. If it doesn't, then it's just not for them. And that's perfectly fine as well. And so when I'm thinking about teaching young people about entrepreneurship, I just try to give them the underlying reason why they should consider it. And I think that for me, articulating that the value of entrepreneurship is really that freedom aspect. And if you value freedom, you want to make sure that you can still become a doctor, a lawyer, and those are entrepreneurship ventures as well, to a certain extent. If you think of them in that way, you can be a business person, working in a firm, all these things, great, do it. At the same time, you probably want to have another avenue so that you aren't, quote unquote, putting your eggs in one basket, the old cliche. And so if you want that freedom and you want to make sure that your family has something that they can lean on in the future, and your grandkids have something. So there's an old proverb as well that says a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. And so it's not just about me. I'm creating this for my children's children. whether it be through the example or the actual tangible outputs that come from the work that I've done. So that's how I try to go about it. It's less about the nuts and bolts of how to do accounting and spreadsheets and product development. It's more about, well, why do you want to do this and why does it make sense? Once you get to that point and the mind is ready to go, we can talk about marketing plans and strategic development. We can talk about all that stuff later. But if your mind is out of it, it's really hard to start teaching the nuts and bolts pieces of it.
We talked a little bit about the technology as far as how it's changing your market. What are some of the key tools that you use in order to be able to run your own business? Is there any?
I have a very simple. It's super simple, man. Google Drive is like my best friend. So, I'm using Google spreadsheets to do, my not invoicing, but to create my quotes, because I have a system set up where my formula. So if they have this number of colors and designs and t-shirts, I'm taking items from my Google Word documents and copying and pasting them into emails, so we have a consistent message if we need to. It's just super easy. Google is just amazing at this moment, and I hope they never charge for this stuff, but it's just a beautiful tool up to this point. Yeah.
How do you see post COVID-19 and how your business has been impacted by COVID-19?
Yeah, and first of all, I'm just super empathetic to the folks who have been negatively impacted by COVID-19. I've had folks very close to me positively contract the virus, as well as some pass away. And so I'm super thankful that myself and my family, my immediate family, are healthy. And so I'm thankful every day for that. It's definitely been a challenging year, and to say the least. And at the same time, there's a ton of potential silver linings throughout this whole pandemic from a business standpoint, economic standpoint. And so one thing that has driven me crazy, to add a little levity to the conversation for a moment, is whenever I hear folks who are older than I am, and so I'm approaching 40, so older than me, that says in the past, yeah, you kids in that technology, you always got this technology stuff. COVID made it real. And so if you aren't on a technology bandwagon, you have to get on it right now for mere survival to a certain extent. And so all of that's for the kids is out the window. Like, if you're going to be in business in 2020 and beyond, you have to be in the technology age, whether you're coaching through Zoom or you have an app for pickup, you have to be in that space. And so COVID-19 has accelerated the inevitable, in my perspective, and a lot of other folks, in terms of the technology revolution. And so regardless of what your business is, you probably need to be a technology company first, and then your service on top of that. And so my perspective on COVID from a business standpoint is that it has almost shifted the landscape and lit a fire underneath folks who actually are trying to stay in business, but also it caused them to be more strategic and thoughtful about their operations. So if they had 100 people and they were keeping them because of, like, I hate to say, emotional reasons, they have to rethink that now, because in technology you may not need as many folks, and so those people need to have those skills translate into another area of the economy potentially. And so for me, I'm like overly cautious and almost obsessed about how will my skills translate in this new economy next year, 5 years, 10 years from now. Because if I was to rest on my laurels, or if I stay where I am now, the one constant is change. And so I would challenge anyone in this space, entrepreneur or not, to always be evaluating their skill set and how relevant will that skill set, business, whatever, be in the near future and the long-term future. And so COVID and the most unfortunate circumstances has essentially accelerated the inevitable. in my perspective right now. And so it's causing a lot of businesses to be born, and unfortunately it's causing some businesses to have to shut their doors.
That was very insightful, Matt. I never thought about that. The way basically every company is going to have to become a technology company because of COVID. Thank you.
Matt, you represent what I will say the core of who we are in the United States. Majority of entrepreneurs, people who figure it out, people who are positive, people who are, overcoming all the challenges. And really throughout this interview, I saw that spirit. And thank you for bringing good news to your t-shirts, because I think that's what we need. We need good news, good news and good spirit. And we need to go and figure it out. We will be able to overcome many wars, many battles the United States has passed. I'm sure that we will be able to be successful also in this. And Matt, again, you represent that. You represent that type of business entrepreneurs, people who are thinking always new ways. And for that reason, thank you very much for being inspired today. We have learned a lot from you.
Thank you both so very much. I appreciate the time.
Coming up next week, we'll meet Bea Mohammed, CEO of Redco.
To watch today's episode and the complete interviews of our guests, go to rochesterfirst.com/be-inspired. For more great talk with Rochester's entrepreneurs, listen to Poder 97.1, Saturdays at 9 a.m. For Mauricio Riveros, I'm Julio Saenz. We'll see you next week on Be Inspired.